Ever wondered why happiness seems so elusive? The audiobook, How to Be Miserable, 7 Traps That Will Ruin Your Life, reveals the hidden pitfalls sabotaging your joy. Discover the secrets to breaking free from self-sabotaging patterns and unlock your potential for a fulfilling life. Transform your mindset, relationships, and future with powerful insights and strategies. Don't risk staying trapped in invisible cycles of unhappiness. This book could be your key to lasting contentment and success. Before we go on, I invite you to download the free bundle, which contains the ebook version of this book and an executive summary of all the chapters with the key takeaways. Studies show that engaging with content through multiple formats significantly enhances learning and retention. Click on the first link in the description to claim your free bundle now and maximize your learning potential. Now it's free, but it won't be for long, so make sure to grab it while you can. Chapter 1, The Long Slide. Misery doesn't announce its arrival with fanfare. It doesn't kick down your door in the dead of night or ambush you on your morning commute. Instead, it seeps into your life gradually, almost imperceptibly, like a fog rolling in over calm waters. Before you know it, you're enveloped in a haze of dissatisfaction, wondering how you got there, and unsure of how to find your way back to clarity and contentment. This is the long slide into misery, a journey that many of us embark upon without even realizing it. It's a path paved with small choices, subtle habits, and seemingly insignificant decisions that over time compound to create a life that feels unfulfilling, stagnant, or downright miserable. The tragedy is that most people don't recognize they're on this downward trajectory until they're already deep in the valley of discontent. But here's the thing. Just as small choices can lead us into misery, they can also be our ticket out. The power to change your life lies in understanding the nature of this slow decline and learning to recognize the early warning signs. It's about becoming aware of the subtle ways you might be sabotaging your own happiness and taking intentional steps to course correct before you find yourself trapped in a life that feels alien to your true desires and potential. As you embark on this journey through How to Be Miserable, 7 Traps That Will Ruin Your Life, you'll gain invaluable insights into the mechanics of misery. More importantly, you'll discover the tools to dismantle these traps and pave the way for a life of genuine fulfillment and joy. This first chapter sets the stage for that transformation by exploring the insidious nature of the long slide and equipping you with the awareness to recognize it in your own life. The first time you go through this book, you should be able to achieve 2 crucial things. First, you'll start to recognize the subtle habits and mindsets that contribute to misery. These might include negative self-talk, procrastination, or the tendency to prioritize others' needs over your own. Second, you'll begin to identify and question the automatic behaviors that lead to dissatisfaction. These could be as simple as reaching for your phone first thing in the morning, or as complex as staying in a job you hate out of fear of change. Over time, as you continue to apply the principles in this book, you'll develop a greater awareness of your daily choices and their impact on your overall well-being. This heightened consciousness will serve as a powerful tool in breaking free from self-sabotaging patterns. You'll start to notice the small decisions that either contribute to your happiness or detract from it, allowing you to make more intentional choices that align with your true desires and values. The journey out of misery involves several important steps, each building upon the last. The first crucial step is recognizing the signs of gradual dissatisfaction in your life. This might manifest as a persistent feeling of restlessness, a sense that something is off, but you can't quite put your finger on it, or a growing disconnect between your daily life and your deepest aspirations. Next, you'll need to identify the small, unnoticed habits that are contributing to your misery. These could be patterns of thought, such as always assuming the worst will happen, or behaviors like consistently putting off important tasks. Often, these habits are so ingrained that we don't even realize we're engaging in them. Finally, understanding the role of intentionality in combating negativity is key. Misery thrives in the absence of conscious choice. By learning to approach your life with greater purpose and deliberation, you can begin to steer yourself away from the traps that lead to unhappiness. These steps are important because they form the foundation for all the work that follows. Awareness is the cornerstone of change. Without recognizing the patterns and habits that are holding you back, it's impossible to break free from them. Moreover, these steps are arranged in this order because each builds upon the last. You must first notice the signs of dissatisfaction before you can identify the habits causing it, and only then can you begin to act with greater intentionality to change your course. The silent decline into misery is particularly insidious because it often goes unnoticed for so long. Like a frog in slowly heating water, we adapt to gradual changes in our circumstances and mindset without realizing the cumulative effect they're having on our happiness. This is why it's crucial to tune into the subtle signs of dissatisfaction in your life. These signs might include a growing sense of apathy towards things you once enjoyed, increased irritability or impatience in your daily interactions, or a persistent feeling of being stuck or unfulfilled. You might find yourself constantly looking forward to the next weekend, vacation, or major life event, always thinking that happiness lies just around the corner rather than in the present moment. Small choices matter more than we often realize. Every decision we make, no matter how insignificant it may seem, is either moving us towards greater happiness and fulfillment or pushing us further down the slide into misery. The latte you buy every morning might seem harmless, but if it's stretching your budget and causing financial stress, it's contributing to your overall dissatisfaction. The extra hour you spend scrolling through social media, instead of pursuing a passion project, is a small choice with big implications for your long-term happiness and sense of purpose. These small choices compound over time, creating momentum that can be difficult to reverse. This is why personal growth requires constant vigilance and intentionality. Complacency is the enemy of happiness. When we become too comfortable with our routines and stop questioning whether our choices align with our values and goals, we leave ourselves vulnerable to the gradual erosion of joy. Understanding the nature of misery is crucial in our quest to avoid it. Contrary to what many believe, misery isn't just the absence of happiness, it's an active state that requires maintenance. In fact, one could argue that misery is the default state for many people. Without conscious effort to cultivate joy and fulfillment, we naturally drift towards dissatisfaction. This is because our brains are wired to focus on the negative, a trait that served our ancestors well in survival situations, but can lead to chronic unhappiness in our modern world. We're more likely to dwell on our failures than celebrate our successes, to worry about potential future problems rather than appreciate present joys. Moreover, a lack of intentionality fuels unhappiness. When we live on autopilot, making choices based on habit or societal expectations rather than our true desires and values, we create a breeding ground for misery. We might find ourselves in careers we hate, relationships that drain us, or lifestyles that don't align with our authentic selves, all because we failed to make conscious, intentional choices along the way. The erosion of joy is a gradual process, often marked by subtle shifts in perspective that diminish our capacity for happiness over time. What starts as occasional negative self-talk can evolve into a persistent inner critic that undermines our confidence and self-worth. A tendency to compare ourselves to others on social media can slowly morph into a deep-seated belief that we're always falling short. These gradual shifts are dangerous because they can fundamentally alter our worldview without us realizing it. We might start to see challenges as insurmountable obstacles rather than opportunities for growth. Relationships might begin to feel like burdens rather than sources of support and joy. The world itself might seem increasingly hostile or indifferent to our hopes and dreams. Ignoring these emotional and mental red flags is a risky proposition. Just as we wouldn't ignore persistent physical pain, we shouldn't dismiss ongoing feelings of dissatisfaction or unhappiness. These are our psyche's way of alerting us that something is amiss and needs attention. As we set the stage for the journey ahead, it's crucial to understand the role of awareness in breaking free from the traps of misery. Awareness is like turning on a light in a dark room. Suddenly, we can see the obstacles that were tripping us up and the paths forward that were previously hidden. Developing this awareness involves learning to question our automatic behaviors and thought patterns. It's about pausing before reacting and asking ourselves, is this choice moving me towards happiness or further into misery? It's about noticing the small moments of joy in our day and the instances where we feel most alive and aligned with our true selves. By cultivating this awareness and questioning our habitual responses to life, we begin to build a stronger foundation for personal growth and happiness. We create space between stimulus and response, allowing us to make more intentional choices that align with our deepest values and aspirations. As we conclude this chapter and look ahead to the rest of the book, remember that the journey out of misery is not about achieving perfection or constant happiness. It's about developing the tools to navigate life's ups and downs with greater resilience, purpose, and joy. In the chapters that follow, we'll delve deeper into specific traps that can derail our pursuit of happiness and explore strategies to overcome them. The path ahead may seem daunting, but take heart. By simply engaging with these ideas and beginning to question the status quo of your life, you've already taken the first crucial step towards breaking free from the long slide into misery. As we venture into the depths of the Saboteur in the next chapter, prepare to confront one of the most insidious enemies of happiness, one that resides within your own mind. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to Grow to the Top and activate notifications to receive more self-improvement tips that will supercharge your growth. And make sure to give this video a thumbs up and share it with your friends. It really helps the channel grow. Thank you for your support. Chapter 2, The Saboteur. Have you ever felt like your worst enemy is staring back at you in the mirror? That nagging voice in your head that whispers doubts, criticisms, and fears? It's more than just an occasional nuisance. It's a formidable adversary lurking within your own mind, ready to undermine your confidence and sabotage your success at every turn. Welcome to the world of the Saboteur. This internal nemesis is far more dangerous than any external obstacle you might face. It knows your deepest insecurities, your most closely guarded fears, and it uses this intimate knowledge to keep you trapped in a cycle of self-doubt and inaction. But who is this saboteur, and why does it seem so intent on holding you back? The truth is, the saboteur is a part of you, a part that believes it's protecting you from harm, failure, or disappointment. It's the voice of caution gone rogue, the instinct for self-preservation twisted into a force of self-destruction. And its weapon of choice? Negative self-talk. Negative self-talk is the silent killer of dreams, the invisible barrier between you and your potential. It's the constant stream of pessimistic thoughts that color your perception of the world and your place in it. You're not good enough, it whispers. Why even bother trying? You'll only fail anyway. These thoughts might seem harmless at first glance. After all, they're just thoughts, right? But the power of negative self-talk lies in its persistence and its ability to shape your reality. Every time you listen to that critical inner voice, you reinforce its message. Over time, these thoughts become beliefs, and these beliefs become the lens through which you view yourself and the world around you. The impact of this negative inner dialogue extends far beyond momentary discomfort. It erodes your confidence, chip by chip, until you find yourself hesitating to take risks or pursue opportunities. It fosters a sense of helplessness, convincing you that your circumstances are beyond your control and that your efforts are futile. In essence, negative self-talk becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, creating the very outcomes you fear most. But here's the good news. Recognizing the saboteur for what it is, a misguided attempt at self-protection, is the first step towards breaking free from its grip. By understanding the mechanics of negative self-talk and its impact on your life, you can begin to challenge and ultimately rewrite the script playing in your head. The voice within, your inner dialogue, is constantly shaping your reality in ways you might not even realize. Every thought you have creates a corresponding emotional response, which in turn influences your behavior. When that inner voice is predominantly negative, it creates a ripple effect that touches every aspect of your life. Consider this. You're about to give an important presentation at work. As you prepare, your inner saboteur chimes in. You always mess up under pressure. Remember that time you stumbled over your words in the last meeting? Everyone probably thinks you're incompetent. These thoughts trigger anxiety and self-doubt, which might cause you to rush through your presentation or avoid eye contact with your audience. Your performance suffers, reinforcing the belief that you're not good at public speaking, and the cycle continues. This is just one example of how negative self-talk can create a self-fulfilling prophecy. The saboteur's predictions come true not because they were accurate, but because they influenced your behavior in a way that made them accurate. The common characteristics of negative self-talk are insidious and often go unnoticed. It tends to be automatic, popping into your head without invitation. It's often absolutist, using words like always, never, or everyone. It focuses on the negative, dismissing positive aspects of a situation. And perhaps most damagingly, it presents itself as the voice of reason, making its pessimistic outlook seem like cold, hard reality rather than a skewed perspective. The impact of negative self-talk on your self-perception cannot be overstated. Your sense of self, your identity, is shaped by the stories you tell yourself. When those stories are consistently negative, they create a distorted self-image that can be hard to shake. You might come to see yourself as inherently flawed, unworthy, or incapable of success. This negative self-perception becomes a filter through which you interpret all of your experiences, reinforcing the saboteur's message at every turn. Moreover, negative self-talk can lead to a paralyzing fear that keeps you stuck in place. When you constantly tell yourself that you're not good enough or that failure is inevitable, taking risks or pursuing your goals becomes terrifying. You might find yourself procrastinating on important tasks, avoiding social situations, or passing up opportunities for growth and advancement. The saboteur convinces you that it's safer to stay in your comfort zone, even if that zone is stifling your potential and happiness. This paralysis by fear is one of the most insidious effects of the saboteur's influence. It creates a life of what-ifs and missed opportunities, a life where your true potential remains forever untapped. The tragedy is that this fear is based on a false narrative, the distorted perspective of your inner critic rather than an accurate assessment of your abilities and opportunities. But here's the crucial thing to understand. While the saboteur's voice may be powerful, it is not infallible. Its predictions are not facts, and its judgments are not final. You have the power to challenge this voice, to question its assumptions, and ultimately, to change the conversation happening in your head. Breaking the cycle of negative self-talk begins with recognition. You need to become aware of your automatic thoughts, those knee-jerk reactions and judgments that pop into your head throughout the day. This isn't always easy. These thoughts can be so ingrained that they feel like an inherent part of your personality rather than learned responses. One effective way to start recognizing these thoughts is to imagine them as coming from an external source. If a friend spoke to you the way your inner critic does, would you accept their words as truth? Would you even want to spend time with someone who constantly put you down and predicted your failure? Probably not. This mental shift can help you start to separate yourself from your negative thoughts and see them for what they are: unhelpful patterns rather than immutable truths. Once you've started to recognize your negative self-talk, the next step is to challenge it. This doesn't mean simply trying to think positive thoughts instead. That's rarely effective in the long term. Instead, it means examining your negative thoughts critically. Are they based on facts or assumptions? Are they helpful or harmful? Are there alternative explanations or perspectives you haven't considered? For example, if you make a mistake at work and your inner saboteur chimes in with, "You're so incompetent, you'll never succeed in this career," you might challenge that thought by asking, "Is one mistake really indicative of my overall competence? Haven't I also had successes in this job?" What can I learn from this mistake to improve my performance in the future? This process of questioning and challenging your negative thoughts is the key to rewriting your inner script. It's about replacing automatic negativity with thoughtful, balanced reflection. Over time, this practice can help you develop a more realistic and compassionate inner dialogue. But challenging negative thoughts is just the beginning. To truly break free from the saboteur's influence, you need to actively cultivate a new way of thinking. This involves developing new mental habits that support your growth and well-being rather than undermining them. One powerful technique is to practice mindfulness, the art of being present and aware in the moment without judgment. Mindfulness can help you catch negative thoughts as they arise, allowing you to address them before they spiral out of control. It also helps you develop a sense of distance from your thoughts, recognizing that you are not your thoughts. You are the observer of your thoughts, and you have the power to choose which ones to engage with. Another effective strategy is to use evidence-based techniques to challenge irrational beliefs. This might involve keeping a thought journal, where you record your negative thoughts and then systematically examine the evidence for and against them. Often, you'll find that your worst fears and self-criticisms have little basis in reality. Developing a habit of replacing negativity with empowering affirmations can also be transformative. This doesn't mean simply repeating positive phrases to yourself. It means actively looking for evidence of your capabilities and worth, and reminding yourself of these truths when the saboteur tries to convince you otherwise. As you work to overcome the saboteur's influence, it's important to remember that change takes time. You're not just changing a few thoughts, you're rewiring deeply ingrained mental patterns. Be patient with yourself and celebrate small victories along the way. The potential outcomes of this work are profound. At a basic level, you can expect improved self-awareness and reduced anxiety as you learn to recognize and challenge negative thought patterns. This alone can significantly improve your quality of life, allowing you to approach challenges with greater calm and clarity. As you continue to practice, you may find your confidence growing and your emotional stability improving. The saboteur's voice becomes less dominant, allowing you to make decisions based on a more balanced and realistic assessment of your abilities and opportunities. In the best-case scenario, you develop a consistently positive mindset that drives both personal and professional growth. This doesn't mean you never have negative thoughts. That's not realistic or even desirable. Instead, it means you have the tools to manage those thoughts effectively, preventing them from derailing your progress or dampening your spirit. Of course, the journey isn't always smooth. One common pitfall is falling back into old habits during stressful times. When you're under pressure, it's easy for the saboteur to regain its foothold. The key to overcoming this is to create a support system and regularly review your progress. This might involve working with a therapist or coach, joining a support group, or simply enlisting trusted friends to help keep you accountable. Remember, silencing the saboteur isn't about achieving perfection. It's about developing resilience and self-compassion. It's about learning to be your own ally rather than your own worst enemy. As we close this chapter, take a moment to reflect on the power you hold. The saboteur may have held sway over your thoughts and actions for years, but its reign is not absolute. With awareness, persistence, and the right tools, you can reclaim control of your inner narrative and chart a course towards the life you truly desire. But the saboteur is just one of the traps awaiting us on the path to misery. As we move forward, we'll encounter another insidious force that can drain our joy and derail our authenticity. It's a game many of us play without even realizing it, one that can leave us feeling hollow and unfulfilled even as we chase the approval of others. Are you ready to uncover the hidden rules of this perilous game? Chapter 3: Pleasing Games. Have you ever found yourself saying yes when every fiber of your being wanted to scream no? Or perhaps you've bent over backwards to meet someone else's expectations, only to feel a gnawing emptiness inside. If so, You might be an unwitting player in one of life's most insidious games, a game where the rules are unspoken, the stakes are your authenticity, and the prize is an ever-elusive approval that always seems just out of reach. Welcome to the world of pleasing games, where your worth is measured by others' satisfaction, and your true self becomes a sacrificial lamb on the altar of external validation. It's a game many of us play without even realizing it, one that can leave us feeling hollow and unfulfilled even as we chase the fleeting high of others' approval. But what drives us to play this game in the first place? Why do we so often prioritize others' opinions over our own well-being? The answer lies deep within our psychological makeup, in the very foundations of how we construct our sense of self-worth. From the moment we enter this world, we learn that our survival and well-being depend on the care and attention of others. As infants, we quickly discover that our cries bring comfort, our smiles elicit positive responses. This early conditioning creates a powerful association in our minds. Pleasing others equals safety, acceptance, and love. As we grow, this need for approval becomes more complex. We learn to navigate the social world by reading cues from those around us, adjusting our behavior to fit in and gain acceptance. In many ways, this is a crucial skill for social survival. But for some of us, it becomes more than that. It becomes a compulsion, a never-ending quest for validation that overrides our own needs and desires. The need for approval is deeply human. We are, after all, social creatures. Our brains are wired to seek connection and belonging. The rush of dopamine we get from a compliment or a like on social media is testament to how powerfully rewarding external validation can be. But when does this natural inclination cross the line into harmful people-pleasing? The answer lies in the concept of conditional self-worth. This is the belief, often unconscious, that our value as a person is dependent on meeting certain conditions, usually conditions set by others or by society at large. When we operate from a place of conditional self-worth, we're constantly seeking approval to validate our existence. We become chameleons, changing our colors to blend in with whatever environment we find ourselves in, always afraid that if we show our true selves, we'll be rejected or deemed unworthy. This fear of rejection is at the heart of approval-seeking behaviors. It's what makes us say yes to commitments we don't want, laugh at jokes we don't find funny, or mold our opinions to match those of the people around us. We do these things not because they align with our true selves, but because we believe they'll make others like us more. Over time, these behaviors become habits. We develop a finely tuned radar for others' expectations and a reflexive urge to meet them. We become experts at reading the room, at anticipating what others want from us before they even ask. In a sense, we become ventriloquists' dummies, our mouths moving to words that aren't our own. But this constant performance comes at a steep cost. The more we play these pleasing games, the further we drift from our authentic selves. We lose touch with our own desires, our own values, our own voice. We become so focused on being who we think others want us to be that we forget who we actually are. This loss of authenticity is perhaps the most insidious effect of people-pleasing. It's a slow erosion, barely noticeable at first, but devastating in its long-term impact. We might wake up one day to realize we've built a life that looks good on paper, but feels empty inside. We've achieved the goals others set for us, but we've lost sight of what we truly want for ourselves. Moreover, the constant effort to please others is exhausting. It's like trying to hold up a mask all day, every day. The weight of unmet needs, unexpressed opinions, and unfulfilled desires accumulates over time, leading to burnout and resentment. This resentment is often directed both outward and inward. We resent others for their demands and expectations, even though we're the ones who've trained them to expect our compliance. And we resent ourselves for our inability to stand up for our own needs, for our weakness in the face of others' disapproval. The irony is that in trying to make everyone like us, we often end up liking ourselves less. We sacrifice our integrity, our authenticity, and our peace of mind on the altar of others' approval. And the sad truth is, this sacrifice rarely pays off in the way we hope it will. Because here's the thing about pleasing games, they're rigged from the start. No matter how hard you try, you can never please everyone all the time. There will always be someone who's dissatisfied, always another hoop to jump through, always another expectation to meet. It's an endless treadmill that leaves you exhausted, but never actually gets you anywhere. So how do we break free from this cycle? How do we reclaim our autonomy and start living for ourselves instead of for others' approval? The first step is awareness. We need to recognize when we're playing pleasing games, when we're making decisions based on others' expectations rather than our own values and desires. This isn't always easy. These patterns are often so ingrained that they feel like an integral part of who we are. But with practice, we can learn to catch ourselves in the act of people-pleasing. Once we're aware of our people-pleasing tendencies, we can start to challenge them. This involves asking ourselves some tough questions. Why am I doing this? Is it because I truly want to, or because I'm afraid of disappointing someone? What would happen if I said no? What's the worst that could happen if someone disapproved of my choice? Often, we'll find that our fears of rejection or disapproval are overblown. Most people are far too preoccupied with their own lives to spend much time judging our choices. And those who would reject us for being true to ourselves are probably not people we want in our lives anyway. Setting boundaries is a crucial part of reclaiming your autonomy. This means learning to say no to requests or expectations that don't align with your values or priorities. It means being willing to disappoint others in order to be true to yourself. This can be uncomfortable at first, especially if you're used to always saying yes, but with practice, it gets easier. Start small. Practice saying no in low-stakes situations where the consequences of disappointing someone are minimal. As you get more comfortable with setting boundaries, you can tackle bigger issues. Remember, setting boundaries isn't about being selfish or uncaring. It's about being honest with yourself and with others. It's about respecting your own needs and limitations and expecting others to do the same. In the long run, this honesty leads to healthier, more authentic relationships. Another key aspect of reclaiming your autonomy is reconnecting with your own values and desires. After years of people-pleasing, you might find that you're not even sure what you want anymore. That's okay. Take some time to explore. Try new things. Pay attention to what lights you up, what feels authentic and true to you. Reflect on your personal values. What principles are most important to you? What kind of person do you want to be? Let these values guide your decisions, rather than the ever-changing expectations of others. As you start to live more authentically, you may be surprised by the outcomes. At first, it might feel uncomfortable. You might worry that people won't like the real you as much as they like the people-pleasing version. But over time, you're likely to find that the opposite is true. When you're living authentically, you'll likely find that your self-awareness and confidence in decision-making improve. You'll be more in tune with your own needs and desires and better able to make choices that align with your true self. This increased self-awareness can lead to greater satisfaction in all areas of your life. As you become more authentic, you may notice that your relationships start to change, often for the better. When you're no longer constantly trying to please others, you create space for more genuine connections. You'll attract people who appreciate you for who you really are, not for who you pretend to be. These relationships, built on mutual respect and authenticity, are likely to be more fulfilling and sustainable than those based on people-pleasing. In the best-case scenario, you might find yourself living a fully authentic life, aligned with your personal values and goals. This doesn't mean your life will be perfect or free from challenges. But it does mean that you'll be facing those challenges as your true self, guided by your own internal compass rather than the fickle winds of others' approval. Of course, the journey from people-pleasing to authenticity isn't always smooth. One common challenge is facing pushback from others when you start setting boundaries. People who are used to your constant accommodation may react negatively when you start saying no or asserting your own needs. When this happens, it's important to stay firm in your decisions and communicate your needs clearly. Remember, you're not responsible for managing others' emotions or reactions. You can be kind and respectful while still holding your ground. It's also crucial to remember that change takes time. You won't transform from a people pleaser to a paragon of authenticity overnight. There will be setbacks and moments of doubt. Be patient with yourself, celebrate small victories, and remember that every time you choose authenticity over people pleasing, you're strengthening your sense of self and your ability to live true to your values. As we conclude this exploration of pleasing games, take a moment to reflect on your own life. How often do you find yourself playing these games? What would it look like to start living more authentically, to prioritize your own needs and values alongside those of others? The path to authenticity may not be easy, but it's infinitely rewarding. It's a journey from the exhausting performance of people-pleasing to the liberating truth of being yourself. It's about reclaiming your power, your voice, and your right to live life on your own terms. But as we step away from the pleasing games, we find ourselves facing another challenge, one that can be just as draining and just as detrimental to our happiness and success. It's a trap that many of us fall into in our pursuit of excellence, a mindset that promises perfection but delivers only frustration and stagnation. Are you ready to confront the illusion that's been holding you back from your true potential? Chapter 4: Flawless Dreams. We all have dreams, visions of what our lives could be, of the heights we could reach if only we pushed ourselves hard enough. These dreams can be powerful motivators, driving us to achieve great things. But what happens when these dreams become distorted, when the pursuit of excellence transforms into an unrelenting demand for flawlessness? Welcome to the world of flawless dreams, where the air is thin, the standards are impossibly high, and the finish line is always just out of reach. It's a world many of us inhabit without even realizing it, one where we're constantly chasing an ideal that exists only in our minds. At first glance, the pursuit of perfection might seem admirable. After all, shouldn't we always strive to do our best? But there's a crucial difference between striving for excellence and demanding perfection. The former pushes us to grow and improve, while the latter can trap us in a cycle of stress, self-doubt, and stagnation. The allure of perfection is powerful. It whispers promises of unassailable success, of a life free from criticism or failure. It paints a picture of a world where everything is just right, where we never have to face the discomfort of falling short. But this picture is an illusion, a mirage that shimmers tantalizingly on the horizon but disappears as soon as we get close. Perfectionism creates unrealistic expectations, not just for ourselves, but for the world around us. It sets standards that are impossible to meet consistently, if at all. The perfectionist mindset tells us that anything less than flawless is a failure, that there's no middle ground between perfection and disaster. But where does this drive for perfection come from? The roots of perfectionist tendencies often lie in our early experiences and the messages we received growing up. Perhaps we were praised excessively for our achievements, leading us to believe that our worth is tied to our accomplishments. Or maybe we faced harsh criticism for our mistakes, instilling a deep fear of failure. Behavioral psychology reveals that perfectionism often stems from a fear of failure and a deep desire to avoid criticism. It's a defensive mechanism, a way of trying to protect ourselves from the pain of disappointment or rejection. If we can just be perfect, we think, then we'll be beyond reproach. We'll be safe. But this safety is an illusion. In reality, perfectionism doesn't protect us from failure or criticism. It simply paralyzes us with fear of them. This paralysis is one of the most insidious effects of the perfectionism trap. When we're so afraid of making mistakes that we refuse to take action until conditions are perfect, we often end up taking no action at all. This paralysis manifests as procrastination. We put off starting projects because we're waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect idea, the perfect set of circumstances. We delay finishing tasks because there's always one more tweak to make, one more detail to refine. In our quest for flawlessness, we end up accomplishing far less than we could have if we'd been willing to embrace imperfection. Even when we do manage to take action, perfectionism can lead to diminishing returns. We pour more and more effort into minor improvements, obsessing over details that may not even be noticeable to anyone else. This not only wastes our time and energy, but can actually detract from the overall quality of our work. In our fixation on perfecting every tiny aspect, we lose sight of the bigger picture. The perfectionism trap doesn't just affect our productivity, it takes a toll on our relationships and self-esteem as well. When we hold ourselves to impossibly high standards, we often do the same to others. This can lead to constant disappointment in our relationships, as no one can live up to the flawless ideal we've constructed in our minds. As for our self-esteem, perfectionism sets us up for constant feelings of inadequacy. No matter how well we do, it's never quite good enough. There's always room for improvement, always a flaw to fixate on. This constant self-criticism can lead to anxiety, depression, and a persistent sense of failure, even in the face of objectively impressive achievements. So how do we break free from this trap? How do we let go of our flawless dreams and embrace a more realistic, more fulfilling approach to life and work? The key lies in shifting our focus from perfection to progress. Instead of fixating on an unattainable ideal, we need to learn to appreciate the journey of growth and improvement. This doesn't mean lowering our standards or settling for mediocrity. Rather, it means recognizing that progress, not perfection, is the true measure of success. Embracing progress over perfection allows us to take action without the paralyzing fear of making mistakes. It frees us to experiment, to take risks, to learn and grow. When we're not demanding flawlessness from ourselves, we open up space for creativity and innovation. This shift in mindset also allows us to celebrate small wins along the way. Instead of constantly moving the goalposts and never feeling satisfied, we can acknowledge and appreciate each step forward. This not only boosts our motivation, but also builds our resilience. We become more able to bounce back from setbacks because we see them as part of the learning process, not as catastrophic failures. To avoid the perfectionism trap, it's crucial to set realistic goals and deadlines. This doesn't mean setting the bar low, it means setting it at a challenging but achievable level. Break larger projects into smaller, manageable tasks. This not only makes the overall goal seem less daunting, but also provides more opportunities to experience a sense of accomplishment along the way. Focus on completion rather than perfection. Sometimes, done is better than perfect. This is especially true for first drafts or initial attempts. Remember, you can always refine and improve later. The important thing is to get something concrete to work with, rather than endlessly planning or tweaking without producing anything tangible. It's also important to reward yourself for effort and progress, not just for outcomes. Recognize the value in the work you put in, regardless of whether the result meets your ideal standard. This helps to build intrinsic motivation and reduces the anxiety associated with perfectionism. As you start to let go of perfectionist tendencies, you may notice some immediate benefits. One of the most significant is a reduction in stress. When you're not constantly holding yourself to impossible standards, you'll likely feel a sense of relief. This decreased stress can lead to greater productivity as you're able to focus on your work without the constant anxiety of potential failure. Over time, as you continue to embrace progress over perfection, you may find your resilience increasing. You'll become better at bouncing back from setbacks because you'll see them as learning opportunities rather than catastrophic failures. This resilience extends to your problem-solving abilities as well. When you're not paralyzed by the fear of making mistakes, you're more likely to approach challenges creatively and find innovative solutions. In the best-case scenario, this shift away from perfectionism can lead to a more balanced and fulfilling life. When you're able to celebrate effort over outcomes, you open yourself up to a wider range of experiences and opportunities. You're more likely to take risks, to try new things, to put yourself out there. This can lead to personal and professional growth that might never have been possible if you were still trapped in the pursuit of flawlessness. Of course, letting go of perfectionism isn't always easy. One common pitfall is feeling dissatisfied with imperfect results, especially at first. After all, if you've spent years holding yourself to impossibly high standards, it can be jarring to suddenly accept work that doesn't meet those standards. When this happens, it's important to reframe your thinking. Instead of seeing imperfection as a failure, try to view it as a stepping stone to mastery. Every imperfect attempt is a learning opportunity, a chance to gain knowledge and skills that will serve you in future endeavors. Remember, even the most accomplished experts in any field had to start somewhere, and their early attempts were likely far from perfect. It can also be helpful to seek feedback from others. Often, we're our own harshest critics, and what we see as glaring flaws may not even be noticeable to others. Getting an outside perspective can help you gain a more balanced view of your work and achievements. As you continue on this journey of embracing progress over perfection, remember that it's okay to have high standards. The goal isn't to stop caring about quality or to never strive for excellence. Rather, it's to find a balance between ambition and self-compassion, between pushing yourself to improve and accepting that improvement is a gradual process. Letting go of flawless dreams doesn't mean giving up on your aspirations. It means pursuing them in a way that's sustainable, that allows for growth and learning, that recognizes the value in the journey as well as the destination. It means freeing yourself from the paralysis of perfectionism and embracing the messy, imperfect, but ultimately more rewarding path of progress. As we conclude this exploration of flawless dreams, take a moment to reflect on your own relationship with perfectionism. How has the pursuit of flawlessness affected your life? What might change if you shifted your focus from perfection to progress? The path away from perfectionism may not be smooth or straight, but it leads to a place of greater freedom, creativity, and fulfillment. It's a journey from the rigid demands of flawlessness to the liberating embrace of growth and learning. But as we step away from the pursuit of perfection, we find ourselves facing another challenge, one that can be just as insidious in its ability to derail our progress and steal our joy. It's a trap that many of us fall into daily, a seemingly harmless habit that can slowly but surely erode our potential and our peace of mind. Are you ready to confront the silent thief that's been stealing your future, one day at a time? Chapter 5, Tomorrow Trap. Have you ever found yourself staring at a looming deadline, a mountain of unfinished work, or an important goal that seems to be perpetually just out of reach? If so, you're not alone. We all have dreams, ambitions, and responsibilities that we know we should be tackling. Yet, time and again, we find ourselves pushing these tasks off to some nebulous later, convincing ourselves that tomorrow will be the perfect day to start. Welcome to the Tomorrow Trap, a deceptive snare that lures us in with the promise of comfort and ease, only to leave us tangled in a web of unmet goals, mounting stress, and eroded self-trust. It's a trap that's all too easy to fall into, and one that can have far-reaching consequences on our personal and professional lives. But what exactly is this trap, and why does it have such a powerful hold on us? At its core, the Tomorrow Trap is about more than just putting things off. It's a complex interplay of psychology, neurobiology, and learned behaviors that can keep us stuck in patterns of inaction and unfulfillment. The appeal of delay is undeniable. When we push a task off to tomorrow, we experience an immediate sense of relief. The pressure lifts, the anxiety subsides, and we're free to engage in more pleasurable activities. This feeling of relief is so potent that it can become addictive, leading us to habitually postpone challenging or unpleasant tasks. But this momentary comfort comes at a steep price. Each time we delay, we're not just pushing off a task, we're sabotaging our long-term goals and dreams. The project that never gets started, the skill that's never developed, the relationship that's never nurtured, these are the casualties of the Tomorrow Trap. Moreover, procrastination creates a vicious cycle. The more we put things off, the more daunting they become. As tasks pile up and deadlines loom closer, our stress levels rise. This increased stress makes the task seem even more unpleasant, which in turn makes us more likely to procrastinate further. It's a self-perpetuating cycle that can leave us feeling overwhelmed and powerless. To truly understand the tomorrow trap, we need to delve into the science of delay. Researchers have identified a phenomenon called temporal discounting, which explains why we often prioritize short-term comfort over long-term gains. Our brains are wired to value immediate rewards more highly than future benefits, even when those future benefits are objectively more valuable. This tendency is rooted in our evolutionary past. For our ancestors, immediate threats and opportunities were often more relevant to survival than long-term planning. While this bias served us well in a world of immediate physical dangers, it can work against us in our modern lives, where many of our most important goals require sustained effort over time. But temporal discounting is only part of the story. Procrastination is also deeply tied to emotional avoidance. When we face a task that we perceive as challenging, boring, or potentially threatening to our self-esteem, our brains register it as a source of negative emotions. By putting off the task, we're actually trying to regulate these emotions to avoid the discomfort associated with the task. This emotional component is crucial to understanding why willpower alone is often not enough to overcome procrastination. We're not just battling laziness or poor time management. We're grappling with a deeply ingrained emotional coping mechanism. The impact of chronic procrastination goes beyond just missed deadlines or unfinished projects. It erodes our self-trust, that fundamental belief in our ability to follow through on our commitments to ourselves. Each time we break a promise to ourselves by putting something off, we chip away at this trust. Over time, this can lead to a pervasive sense of unreliability and self-doubt that can seep into all areas of our lives. So how do we break free from this trap? How do we overcome the powerful pull of delay and start taking consistent action towards our goals? The first step is to recognize that overcoming procrastination isn't about forcing yourself to power through unpleasant tasks through sheer willpower. Instead, it's about creating systems and strategies that make it easier to take action and harder to procrastinate. One powerful strategy is to create accountability. When we're accountable only to ourselves, it's easy to let things slide. But when we involve others in our goals and commitments, we're much more likely to follow through. This could involve finding an accountability partner, joining a group focused on similar goals, or even just sharing your intentions with friends or family. Another key approach is to break tasks down into small, manageable steps. Often, we procrastinate because a task seems overwhelming. By breaking it down into smaller chunks, we make it less daunting and more approachable. This also allows us to experience small wins along the way, which can boost our motivation and momentum. Time blocking techniques can also be incredibly effective. Instead of leaving tasks open-ended, schedule specific times to work on them. This turns abstract intentions into concrete plans, making it more likely that you'll follow through. It's also important to recognize and reward your efforts. Our brains respond well to positive reinforcement. By rewarding yourself for completing challenging tasks, you create a positive association that can make it easier to tackle similar tasks in the future. As you start to implement these strategies, you may notice some immediate benefits. One of the most significant is a reduction in stress. When you're consistently making progress on your tasks and goals, you'll likely feel a sense of control and accomplishment that can significantly reduce anxiety. Over time, as you continue to build the habit of taking consistent action, you may find your self-confidence increasing. Each time you follow through on a commitment to yourself, you're rebuilding that crucial self-trust. This increased confidence can spill over into other areas of your life, empowering you to take on bigger challenges and pursue more ambitious goals. In the best-case scenario, overcoming the tomorrow trap can lead to a transformative shift in how you approach life. Instead of being paralyzed by procrastination, you become someone who can tackle ambitious goals without fear or delay. This doesn't mean you'll never face resistance or the temptation to procrastinate. Those are natural human tendencies. but you'll have the tools and the mindset to push through these obstacles and keep moving forward. Of course, breaking free from the tomorrow trap isn't always smooth sailing. One common pitfall is feeling overwhelmed when starting a large task, even after breaking it down into smaller steps. When this happens, it's important to simplify further and focus on just one step at a time. Remember, any progress, no matter how small, is better than no progress at all. It's also crucial to be patient and compassionate with yourself as you work to overcome procrastination. Change takes time, and you may have setbacks along the way. Instead of berating yourself for slip-ups, try to approach them with curiosity. What triggered the procrastination? What can you learn from this experience to help you stay on track in the future? As you continue on this journey of overcoming procrastination, remember that the goal isn't to become a productivity machine that never takes breaks or enjoys leisure time. Rather, it's about finding a balance where you can pursue your goals and meet your responsibilities while still enjoying life in the present moment. The key is to make conscious, intentional choices about how you spend your time, rather than defaulting to procrastination out of habit or fear. It's about being proactive rather than reactive, taking charge of your time and your life, rather than letting them slip away one tomorrow at a time. Escaping the tomorrow trap doesn't mean you'll never delay anything ever again. There will still be times when it makes sense to postpone a task or when you genuinely need a break. The difference is that these will be conscious choices rather than automatic reactions. You'll be in control rather than letting procrastination control you. As we conclude this exploration of the tomorrow trap, take a moment to reflect on your own relationship with procrastination. How has the habit of delay affected your life? What might change if you started consistently taking action towards your goals? The path away from procrastination may not be easy, but it leads to a place of greater productivity, reduced stress, and increased self-confidence. It's a journey from the paralyzing grip of delay to the empowering embrace of consistent action and achievement. But as we step away from the tomorrow trap, we find ourselves facing another challenge, one that can be just as detrimental to our happiness and success. It's a force that shapes our lives in profound ways, often without us even realizing it. Are you ready to confront the hidden influences that might be holding you back from living your best life? Toxic ties. We are, by nature, social creatures. Our lives are interwoven with the lives of others, creating a tapestry of connections that shape our experiences, our beliefs, and even our sense of self. These connections can be sources of joy, support, and growth. But what happens when these ties become tangled, when the very relationships we rely on for comfort and belonging become sources of pain and confusion? Welcome to the world of toxic ties, where the lines between love and harm, support and sabotage become blurred. It's a world many of us inhabit without fully realizing it, one where the very connections meant to nurture us can slowly poison our well-being. But what exactly makes a tie toxic? It's not always as simple as identifying outright abuse or neglect. Often, the toxicity in relationships is subtle, insidious, creeping into our lives so gradually that we hardly notice its effects until we're deeply entangled. The power of relationships in shaping our lives cannot be overstated. The people we surround ourselves with influence our thoughts, our behaviors, and even our perception of reality. They can lift us up, inspiring us to reach for our dreams, or they can hold us back, reinforcing our doubts and fears. This influence stems from our fundamental need for connection and belonging. As humans, we're hardwired to seek out and maintain social bonds. This instinct, which once ensured our survival in a dangerous world, now shapes our emotional and psychological landscape in profound ways. Attachment theory, a cornerstone of modern psychology, helps us understand why our relationships have such a powerful impact on our well-being. According to this theory, our early relationships, particularly with our primary caregivers, create blueprints for how we expect relationships to function throughout our lives. These early experiences shape our attachment styles, influencing how we form and maintain connections with others. When these early attachments are secure and nurturing, we tend to develop healthy relationship patterns. We learn to trust others, to express our needs, and to balance independence with intimacy. But when these early experiences are marked by inconsistency, neglect, or abuse, we may develop insecure attachment styles that leave us vulnerable to toxic relationships later in life. Research on social influence further illuminates the power of our relationships. We're constantly absorbing cues from those around us, adjusting our behavior and beliefs to fit in with our social groups. This tendency can be positive when we're surrounded by healthy, supportive individuals, but in toxic relationships, it can lead us to internalize harmful messages and behaviors. Recognizing the signs of toxic dynamics is crucial, but it's not always easy. Toxicity in relationships often masquerades as love, concern, or even humor. It might manifest as constant criticism, disguised as just trying to help, or as controlling behavior framed as protectiveness. It could be passive-aggressive comments that leave you feeling confused and guilty, or a persistent negativity that drains your energy and enthusiasm. One of the most insidious effects of toxic relationships is the erosion of self-worth. When we're constantly exposed to criticism, manipulation, or neglect, we start to internalize these negative messages. We begin to doubt our own perceptions, our own worth, our own right to have needs and boundaries. This erosion happens gradually. It's rarely a sudden dramatic event that we can easily identify and resist. Instead, it's a slow chipping away at our self-esteem, our confidence, our sense of who we are. Like water wearing away at a rock, the constant drip of negativity can over time carve deep grooves in our psyche. The emotional and mental drain of toxic relationships is profound. We might find ourselves constantly on edge, walking on eggshells to avoid conflict or criticism. We might feel responsible for managing the other person's emotions, exhausting ourselves trying to keep the peace or make them happy. Or we might find ourselves caught in cycles of drama and reconciliation, with intense highs followed by devastating lows. This constant state of stress and emotional turmoil takes a toll on our mental health. It can lead to anxiety, depression, and a pervasive sense of helplessness. We might start to lose touch with our own desires and aspirations, so focused on navigating the toxic dynamics that we forget to nurture our own growth and happiness. Moreover, toxic relationships can trap us in cycles of dependence. Whether through manipulation, gaslighting, or our own insecurities, we may come to believe that we need the toxic person in our lives. We might fear being alone or doubt our ability to thrive without them. This dependence can make it incredibly difficult to break free, even when we recognize the harm the relationship is causing. So how do we break free from these toxic ties? How do we disentangle ourselves from relationships that harm us and create space for healthier connections? The first step is awareness. We need to learn to identify the red flags of toxic relationships. These might include a lack of respect for boundaries, constant criticism or belittling, manipulation or gaslighting, inconsistency between words and actions, or a persistent negativity that drains your energy. It's also crucial to strengthen our support systems. Toxic relationships often isolate us from other connections, leaving us feeling alone and dependent on the toxic person. By nurturing relationships with supportive friends, family members, or even professional counselors, we create a network that can provide perspective, encouragement, and practical help when we need it. Building healthy connections requires us to develop new skills and habits. We need to learn to communicate assertively, expressing our needs and boundaries clearly and respectfully. We need to practice self-care, prioritizing our own well-being rather than constantly sacrificing ourselves for others. And we need to cultivate self-awareness, learning to recognize our own patterns and triggers in relationships. One practical step in avoiding the trap of toxic ties is to limit contact with negative influences. This doesn't always mean cutting people out of our lives entirely, although in some cases that may be necessary. It might mean setting clear boundaries around when and how we interact with certain individuals, or learning to disengage from harmful dynamics when they arise. At the same time, it's important to actively seek out and nurture uplifting relationships. Surround yourself with people who support your growth, who celebrate your successes, who offer constructive feedback rather than constant criticism. These positive connections can provide a powerful counterbalance to toxic influences and help you recalibrate your expectations of what healthy relationships look like. Practicing assertive communication is another key strategy. Many of us, especially if we've been in toxic relationships, struggle with either being too passive, failing to express our needs, or too aggressive, expressing them in ways that alienate others. Assertiveness is the middle ground, expressing ourselves clearly and respectfully, standing up for our rights while also considering the rights of others. As you start to implement these strategies, you may notice some immediate benefits. One of the most significant is improved emotional stability. When you're no longer constantly navigating toxic dynamics, you'll likely feel a sense of relief and increased peace. You may find your confidence growing as you learn to set and maintain healthy boundaries. Over time, as you continue to cultivate healthier relationships, you may find yourself surrounded by a network of supportive, nurturing connections. These relationships are characterized by mutual respect, open communication, and a balance of give and take. They uplift you, challenge you to grow, and provide a safe haven when life gets tough. In the best-case scenario, you might find yourself part of a fulfilling social circle that not only supports you, but inspires you to be your best self. These are the kinds of connections that energize rather than drain you, that celebrate your successes without envy, that offer honest feedback without tearing you down. In this environment, you're free to explore your potential, to take risks, to be authentically yourself. Of course, breaking free from toxic ties isn't always easy. One common challenge is the difficulty of ending a toxic relationship, especially if it's a long-standing one or involves family members. When faced with this challenge, it's important to seek guidance from trusted individuals or professionals. A therapist or counselor can provide valuable support and strategies for navigating the complex emotions and practical challenges involved in ending toxic relationships. Remember, ending a toxic relationship doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't mean you don't love or care about the other person. It means you're prioritizing your own well-being and creating space for healthier connections in your life. It's also crucial to be patient with yourself as you work to build healthier relationships. If you've been in toxic relationships for a long time, it may take time to unlearn old patterns and develop new, healthier ones. You might find yourself slipping back into old habits or attracting similar types of people. When this happens, try to approach it with curiosity rather than self-judgment. What can you learn from this experience? How can you use it to refine your understanding of what you need and want in relationships? As you continue on this journey of cultivating healthier connections, remember that it's not about achieving perfect relationships. All relationships have their challenges and conflicts. The difference is in how these challenges are approached and resolved. In healthy relationships, conflicts are opportunities for growth and deeper understanding, not weapons to be wielded against each other. The process of freeing yourself from toxic ties and building healthier connections is ultimately a journey of self-discovery. As you learn to identify and avoid toxic dynamics, you'll also be learning about your own needs, values, and boundaries. You'll be rediscovering parts of yourself that may have been suppressed or neglected in toxic relationships. This journey may not be easy, but it's incredibly rewarding. Each step you take towards healthier relationships is a step towards a more authentic, fulfilling life. It's about creating a social environment that nurtures your growth, supports your dreams, and allows you to thrive. As we conclude this exploration of toxic ties, take a moment to reflect on your own relationships. Are there connections in your life that drain you, that leave you feeling smaller or less capable? Are there relationships that consistently uplift and inspire you? What might change if you started prioritizing those healthy connections and setting boundaries with toxic influences? The path away from toxic relationships may be challenging, but it leads to a place of greater emotional freedom, authentic connection, and personal growth. It's a journey from the suffocating grip of toxic ties to the liberating embrace of healthy, nurturing relationships. But as we step away from the realm of interpersonal relationships, we find ourselves facing another challenge, one that can be just as insidious in its ability to undermine our happiness and well-being. It's a force that shapes our lives in profound ways, often operating just below the surface of our consciousness. Are you ready to confront the hidden influence that might be silently eroding your peace of mind and your potential for true prosperity? Chapter 7, Money Fog. Have you ever felt a creeping sense of unease when you think about your financial situation? A vague anxiety that settles in the pit of your stomach whenever you consider your bank balance, your debts, or your financial future? If so, you're not alone. Many of us navigate our financial lives as if we're walking through a dense fog, unable to see clearly where we are or where we're going. Welcome to the world of money fog, where clarity is obscured, decisions are made blindly, and the path to financial well-being is shrouded in uncertainty. It's a world many of us inhabit without fully realizing it, one where our relationship with money is characterized more by avoidance and anxiety than by understanding and control. But what exactly is this fog, and why does it have such a powerful hold on us? At its core, the money fog is about more than just financial illiteracy or poor money management. It's a complex interplay of psychology, emotion, and learned behaviors that can keep us stuck in patterns of financial neglect and uncertainty. The consequences of this neglect can be far-reaching, affecting not just our bank accounts, but our overall well-being. Financial stress has been linked to a host of physical and mental health issues, from anxiety and depression to sleep problems and even heart disease. Yet despite these serious consequences, many of us continue to avoid dealing with our finances head-on. So, why do we do this? Why do we choose to stumble through the fog rather than seeking clarity? The answer lies in part in the way our brains are wired to deal with complex, potentially threatening situations. Behavioral economics, a field that combines insights from psychology and economics, offers some illuminating explanations for our tendency to avoid financial planning. One key concept is loss aversion, our tendency to prefer avoiding losses to acquiring equivalent gains. In the context of financial planning, this might manifest as a reluctance to look closely at our finances for fear of discovering losses or shortfalls. Another relevant concept is present bias, our tendency to prioritize short-term rewards over long-term benefits. This can make it difficult to motivate ourselves to engage in financial planning, which often requires sacrificing immediate pleasures for future security. These cognitive biases, combined with the emotional weight that many of us attach to money, create a perfect storm of avoidance. It's often easier in the short term to ignore our financial situation than to confront it head-on. But this avoidance comes at a steep cost. The psychological toll of financial disorganization is often underestimated. When we lack clarity about our financial situation, we carry that uncertainty with us constantly. It becomes a background hum of anxiety, coloring our decisions and limiting our sense of possibility. This anxiety can manifest in various ways. We might find ourselves hesitating to check our bank balance, putting off opening bills, or avoiding conversations about money with our partners or family members. We might make financial decisions based on gut feelings rather than facts, or put off important financial steps like saving for retirement or creating an emergency fund. The consequences of avoiding our finances can be severe. At its most extreme, financial neglect can lead to a life of constant crisis, where we're always reacting to financial emergencies rather than proactively managing our money. We might find ourselves living paycheck to paycheck, even if our income should theoretically be sufficient for our needs. But even if we're managing to keep our heads above water, financial neglect can still have significant negative impacts. We might miss out on opportunities for growth or investment because we're not aware of our true financial position. We might make poor financial decisions based on incomplete information, and we might live with a constant undercurrent of stress and anxiety that affects our overall quality of life. Moreover, this financial fog can seep into other areas of our lives. It might affect our relationships, creating tension with partners or family members over money issues. It might limit our career choices, keeping us stuck in jobs we don't enjoy because we're too afraid to take financial risks. It might even affect our self-esteem, as financial struggles can often feel like personal failures. So how do we lift this fog? How do we move from financial confusion to clarity and control? The first step is to recognize that clarity, not avoidance, is the path to financial peace of mind. This means being willing to face our financial reality, whatever it may be. It means looking at the numbers, even if they're not what we hope to see. This can be uncomfortable, even scary, but it's a necessary first step. Gaining financial clarity doesn't mean you need to become a financial expert overnight. It starts with simple steps, like creating a basic budget to track your income and expenses. This alone can provide a powerful sense of control and understanding. Knowing where your money is going is the foundation of all financial planning. Another key step is to automate your savings. This taps into the power of inertia. Once you set up automatic transfers to a savings account, it takes effort to stop them. This can help you build savings without having to make the decision to save each month, reducing decision fatigue and making it easier to stick to your financial goals. Building your financial literacy is also crucial. This doesn't mean you need to become a Wall Street expert, but understanding basic financial concepts can give you the confidence to make informed decisions. There are many resources available, from books and online courses to financial advisors, that can help you build your knowledge over time. As you start to implement these strategies, you may notice some immediate benefits. One of the most significant is a reduction in anxiety around money. When you have a clear picture of your financial situation, even if it's not ideal, you regain a sense of control. You're no longer stumbling through the fog, but starting to see the path ahead. Over time, as you continue to build your financial clarity and skills, you may find yourself developing a clear and achievable financial plan. This isn't about getting rich quick or making complex investments. It's about understanding your financial goals and having a realistic strategy to achieve them. Whether it's paying off debt, saving for a major purchase, or building long-term wealth, having a plan can provide a powerful sense of direction and purpose. In the best-case scenario, this journey towards financial clarity can lead to true financial independence. This doesn't necessarily mean being wealthy in the traditional sense. Instead, it's about having the financial freedom to make choices based on your values and goals, rather than being constrained by financial necessity. It's about being able to pursue opportunities, take calculated risks, and live life on your own terms. Of course, the journey out of the money fog isn't always smooth sailing. One common pitfall is feeling overwhelmed by financial details, especially when you're just starting to engage with your finances. When this happens, it's important to remember that you don't have to figure everything out at once. Start small and focus on one financial goal at a time. Maybe begin by simply tracking your expenses for a month, or by setting up an automatic transfer of a small amount to a savings account. Each small step builds your confidence and your skills. It's also crucial to be patient and compassionate with yourself as you work to improve your financial situation. If you've been avoiding your finances for a long time, you may discover some unpleasant realities when you start to engage. You might have more debt than you realized, or less savings than you hoped. Remember that beating yourself up over past financial mistakes doesn't help. Instead, focus on the fact that by facing these realities, you're taking the first step towards improving your situation. As you continue on this journey of financial clarity, remember that the goal isn't to become obsessed with money or to judge your worth by your bank balance. Rather, it's about creating a healthy, balanced relationship with money. It's about understanding that money is a tool, one that can help you live a life aligned with your values and goals when used wisely. The process of lifting the money fog is ultimately a journey of empowerment. As you gain clarity about your finances, you're also gaining clarity about your life choices. You're learning to align your spending with your values, to make informed decisions about your future, and to take control of your financial narrative. This journey may not be easy, but it's incredibly rewarding. Each step you take towards financial clarity is a step towards greater freedom and peace of mind. It's about creating a financial foundation that supports your dreams and aspirations rather than limiting them. As we conclude this exploration of the money fog, take a moment to reflect on your own relationship with money. Do you find yourself avoiding financial matters? Do you feel a sense of anxiety or uncertainty when you think about your financial situation? What might change if you started to actively engage with your finances, to seek clarity instead of stumbling through the fog? The path out of the money fog may be challenging, but it leads to a place of greater financial confidence, reduced stress, and increased opportunity. It's a journey from the paralyzing grip of financial avoidance to the empowering embrace of financial clarity and control. But as we step out of the money fog, we find ourselves facing another challenge, one that can be just as detrimental to our happiness and success. It's a mindset that shapes our perception of the world and our place in it, often without us even realizing it. Are you ready to confront the hidden belief that might be holding you back from taking charge of your life and achieving your true potential? Chapter 8, Finger Pointing. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where things didn't go as planned, and your first instinct was to look for someone or something to blame? Perhaps it was a project that fell through, a relationship that soured, or a personal goal that remained frustratingly out of reach. In these moments, it's all too easy to point the finger outward, to find fault with circumstances, other people, or even fate itself. Welcome to the world of finger pointing, where responsibility is always someone else's, where we are perpetual victims of circumstance, and where our power to affect change in our lives is surrendered to external forces. It's a world many of us inhabit more often than we'd like to admit, one where the temporary comfort of blame becomes a prison that limits our growth and potential. But what exactly drives this tendency to deflect responsibility? Why do we so often choose to point the finger outward rather than looking inward? The answer lies deep within our psychological makeup, in the very way we perceive our relationship to the world around us. At the heart of this phenomenon is a concept known as locus of control. This psychological construct, developed by Julian Rotter in the 1950s, refers to the degree to which people believe they have control over the outcomes of events in their lives. Those with an internal locus of control believe that they are primarily in control of their life outcomes. In contrast, those with an external locus of control tend to believe that their lives are controlled by external factors beyond their influence. The tendency to engage in finger pointing is closely tied to an external locus of control. When we consistently blame others or circumstances for our problems, we're essentially saying, "I have no power here. My life is at the mercy of forces beyond my control." This mindset can be comforting in the short term. After all, if nothing is our fault, we don't have to face the discomfort of our own shortcomings or the challenge of making changes. But why is it so much easier to blame external factors? One reason is that it protects our ego. Admitting our own role in our problems can be painful. It requires us to confront our imperfections, our mistakes, our areas for growth. Blaming others or circumstances allows us to maintain a positive self-image, at least temporarily. Another factor is the fundamental attribution error, a cognitive bias that leads us to attribute our own failures to external circumstances while attributing the failures of others to their personal characteristics. This bias can make it feel natural and justified to blame outside factors for our problems. However, this habit of avoiding accountability comes at a steep cost. When we consistently externalize responsibility, we create a self-fulfilling prophecy of powerlessness. If we believe we have no control over our lives, we're less likely to take actions that could improve our situations. This leads to stagnation, a sense of being stuck in place while life happens to us, rather than being active participants in shaping our own destinies. Moreover, constant finger-pointing erodes our confidence over time. Deep down, we know that blaming others isn't really solving our problems. Each time we deflect responsibility, we reinforce the belief that we're incapable of handling challenges or creating positive change in our lives. This can lead to a pervasive sense of helplessness and frustration. The cost of avoiding responsibility extends beyond our internal world. It affects our relationships, our work, and our overall quality of life. When we're always looking to assign blame, we create an atmosphere of defensiveness and mistrust in our interactions with others. We miss out on opportunities for growth and learning because we're too focused on proving that we're not at fault. Perhaps most insidiously, avoiding responsibility keeps us stuck in a cycle of victimhood. We become passive observers in our own lives, always waiting for external circumstances to change instead of taking action to create the changes we want to see. This cycle can be incredibly frustrating and demoralizing, leaving us feeling powerless and resentful. So, how do we break free from this cycle? How do we move from a mindset of blame to one of empowerment and accountability? The first step is to recognize that taking responsibility is not about blame or punishment. It's about empowerment. When we own our actions and their consequences, we're acknowledging our power to shape our lives. This shift in perspective can be transformative. Taking back control starts with the power of ownership. This means looking at situations, especially challenging ones, and asking ourselves, what was my role in this? What can I learn from this? How can I use this experience to grow? This doesn't mean taking blame for things truly beyond our control, but rather focusing on what we can influence and change. Creating change in our lives becomes possible when we shift from a blame mindset to an ownership mindset. Instead of asking, whose fault is this? We can ask, what can I do to improve this situation? This solution-oriented thinking opens up possibilities that blame often obscures. One practical tip for avoiding the finger-pointing trap is to regularly reflect on your role in challenges and conflicts. This doesn't mean beating yourself up over mistakes, but rather approaching situations with curiosity and a willingness to learn. What patterns do you notice in your behavior or decision-making? How might your actions or reactions have contributed to the outcome? Another powerful strategy is to reframe setbacks as opportunities for growth. When something doesn't go as planned, instead of immediately looking for someone or something to blame, ask yourself what you can learn from the experience. How can you use this setback to become stronger, wiser, or more skilled? Practicing solution-oriented thinking in daily life can also help shift your mindset away from blame. When faced with a problem, challenge yourself to come up with potential solutions before allowing yourself to assign blame. This not only helps you avoid the finger-pointing trap, but also makes you more effective at problem solving. As you start to implement these strategies, you may notice some immediate benefits. One of the most significant is improved problem-solving skills and self-awareness. When you're focused on finding solutions rather than assigning blame, you become more creative and resourceful in your approach to challenges. Over time, as you continue to practice taking responsibility, you may find your resilience and confidence in handling challenges increasing. Each time you face a difficulty head-on, taking ownership of your role and focusing on what you can control, you build your capacity to handle future challenges. You start to see yourself as capable and resourceful rather than as a victim of circumstance. In the best-case scenario, this shift towards accountability can lead to a proactive mindset that drives success and fulfillment. When you believe in your power to influence outcomes, you're more likely to take positive action in your life. You become the author of your own story, actively shaping your experiences rather than passively accepting whatever comes your way. Of course, the journey from blame to accountability isn't always smooth sailing. One common pitfall is struggling to accept responsibility for past mistakes. When we've spent a long time avoiding accountability, facing our role in past problems can be painful. It's important to remember that the goal isn't to berate yourself for past actions, but to learn from them and use that knowledge to make better choices moving forward. When you find yourself struggling with past mistakes, try to focus on what you can control now and how you can move forward. Acknowledge the mistake, identify what you've learned from it, and then direct your energy towards positive action in the present. Remember, taking responsibility isn't about dwelling on the past, but about empowering yourself to create a better future. It's also crucial to be patient and compassionate with yourself as you work to shift your mindset. Changing ingrained habits of thought takes time and practice. You may find yourself slipping back into blame patterns, especially in stressful situations. When this happens, gently remind yourself of your commitment to accountability and refocus on what you can control. As you continue on this journey of embracing responsibility, remember that the goal isn't to take on blame for everything that happens in your life. There will always be factors beyond your control. The key is to focus on your response to these factors, on the choices you make in the face of challenges and setbacks. The process of moving from finger-pointing to accountability is ultimately a journey of empowerment. As you learn to take responsibility for your actions and their outcomes, you're reclaiming your power to shape your life. You're moving from a passive role of reacting to circumstances to an active role of creating the life you want. This journey may not be easy, but it's incredibly rewarding. Each step you take towards accountability is a step towards greater freedom, resilience, and self-efficacy. It's about creating a life where you're in the driver's seat, not just a passenger being taken along for the ride. As we conclude this exploration of finger-pointing, take a moment to reflect on your own tendencies. Do you find yourself quick to blame others or circumstances when things go wrong? What might change if you started to focus more on what you can control and influence? The path from blame to accountability may be challenging, but it leads to a place of greater personal power, increased resilience, and improved relationships. It's a journey from the paralyzing grip of victimhood to the empowering embrace of personal responsibility. But as we step away from the world of finger-pointing, we find ourselves facing one final challenge, one that ties together all we've explored and points the way towards a life of true fulfillment and success. Are you ready to discover the key that can unlock your potential and set you free from the traps we've uncovered? The journey isn't over yet, and the most transformative insights may be just around the corner. Chapter 9: Breaking the Cycle. Congratulations! If you've made it this far, you've embarked on a journey of self-discovery that many never dare to undertake. You've peered into the shadows of your own psyche, confronted the traps that have been holding you back, and now stand at the threshold of transformation. This final chapter isn't just about tying up loose ends. It's about equipping you with the tools to forge a new path forward, one that leads to a life of fulfillment, joy, and purpose. Throughout this book, we've explored the various traps that can lead us into misery, the saboteur of negative self-talk, the pleasing games that rob us of authenticity, the pursuit of flawless dreams that paralyze us, the tomorrow trap of procrastination, the toxic ties that drain us, the money fog that clouds our financial well-being, and the finger-pointing that keeps us stuck in victimhood. Each of these traps has the power to derail our happiness and success. But here's the empowering truth. Now that you're aware of them, you have the power to avoid them. This newfound awareness is your first line of defense against misery. It's like you've been given a map of a treacherous landscape, complete with clearly marked pitfalls and danger zones. Armed with this knowledge, you can navigate your life with greater intentionality, spotting the warning signs of these traps before you fall into them. But awareness alone isn't enough. The real power comes from the intentional living that this awareness enables. As you move forward, you'll find yourself making choices not out of habit or fear, but from a place of clarity and purpose. This intentional approach to life builds confidence over time. Each decision you make in alignment with your true self, each trap you successfully avoid or extract yourself from, adds another brick to the foundation of your self-assurance. The impact of this transformation extends far beyond your internal world. As you break free from these traps, you'll likely notice a shift in your relationships. The healthier boundaries you've learned to set, the authenticity you've reclaimed, and the accountability you've embraced all contribute to stronger, more genuine connections with others. In your personal relationships, you may find a new depth of intimacy as you show up as your true self, free from the need to please or the fear of vulnerability. In professional settings, your increased self-awareness and proactive mindset can inspire respect and foster an environment of mutual growth. You become not just a participant in your relationships, but a catalyst for positive change. This new way of being opens doors that you might have previously thought were closed to you. The self-sabotage that once held you back gives way to clarity of purpose. The procrastination that kept your dreams at arm's length is replaced by focused action. You'll find yourself pursuing ambitious goals not with fear and hesitation, but with excitement and determination. Imagine tackling that project you've always dreamed of, free from the paralysis of perfectionism. Picture yourself navigating challenging conversations with confidence, no longer trapped by the need to please everyone. Envision making financial decisions from a place of clarity and purpose, rather than avoidance and anxiety. These aren't just pipe dreams, they're the tangible results of applying the insights you've gained. As you continue to practice the concepts outlined in this book, you'll likely notice something remarkable. Progress becomes easier over time. The habits you're building now of self-awareness, intentional decision-making, and proactive problem-solving begin to reinforce themselves. What once required conscious effort starts to feel natural. This is the power of positive routines. Instead of relying solely on willpower, which can be depleted, you're creating systems that support your growth and well-being. It's like setting up a series of dominoes. Once you start the chain reaction, each action naturally leads to the next. Let's take a moment to recap the traps we've discussed and their impact. The saboteur of negative self-talk erodes our confidence and limits our potential. The pleasing games rob us of authenticity and true connection. The pursuit of flawless dreams paralyzes us with perfectionism. The tomorrow trap of procrastination keeps our goals perpetually out of reach. Toxic ties drain our energy and distort our sense of self. The money fog creates unnecessary stress and limits our opportunities. And finger-pointing keeps us stuck in a cycle of victimhood and powerlessness. Each of these traps, in its own way, steals our joy and derails our progress. But here's the crucial insight. They all share a common antidote: intentionality. By approaching our thoughts, actions, and decisions with conscious awareness and purpose, we can sidestep these traps and create a life of genuine fulfillment. So how do we move forward? How do we ensure that the insights gained from this book translate into lasting change? The key lies in two main strategies: building awareness and replacing old habits. Building awareness is an ongoing process. It involves regularly checking in with yourself, questioning your thoughts and motivations, and staying vigilant for signs of falling back into old patterns. This doesn't mean constant self-criticism. Quite the opposite. It's about cultivating a compassionate, curious attitude towards your own thoughts and behaviors. Replacing old habits is where the rubber meets the road. For each trap we've discussed, there's a corresponding positive habit you can cultivate. Instead of negative self-talk, practice self-compassion. Rather than people-pleasing, focus on authentic self-expression. Replace perfectionism with a growth mindset that values progress over perfection. Swap procrastination for consistent, small actions towards your goals. Nurture healthy relationships that support your growth. Approach your finances with clarity and purpose, and instead of blaming others, take ownership of your life and choices. Sustaining happiness isn't about reaching a final destination. It's about maintaining momentum on your journey of growth and self-discovery. It's about crafting a future that aligns with your deepest values and aspirations. To maintain this momentum, celebrate your progress, no matter how small. Each time you catch yourself before falling into a trap, each time you make a decision aligned with your true self, is a victory worth acknowledging. These small wins compound over time, fueling your continued growth. Crafting your future is an active, ongoing process. It involves regularly revisiting your goals and values, adjusting your course as needed, and continually expanding your vision of what's possible for your life. As you free yourself from the traps of misery, you may find your aspirations growing bolder, your sense of what you can achieve expanding. Remember, the journey you've embarked on isn't about achieving a perfect, problem-free life. It's about developing the resilience, self-awareness, and intentionality to navigate life's challenges with grace and purpose. It's about creating a life that feels authentic, meaningful, and deeply satisfying to you. As we conclude this book, I want to leave you with a powerful truth. You are the author of your own story. The insights and strategies we've explored are tools, but the real power lies within you. Your capacity for growth, for change, for creating a life of joy and purpose is limitless. The traps we've discussed, the negative self-talk, the people-pleasing, the perfectionism, the procrastination, the toxic relationships, the financial avoidance, the blame game, they're all just chapters in your old story. But now, armed with awareness and intentionality, you have the power to write a new story. Imagine for a moment the life you could create, free from these traps. Picture the confidence you'd feel, the genuine relationships you'd nurture, the goals you'd achieve, the impact you could make. This isn't just a fantasy, it's a real possibility, one that you can start bringing to life today. Your journey doesn't end with the closing of this book. In fact, this is just the beginning. Every day presents new opportunities to apply what you've learned, to choose intentionality over autopilot, growth over stagnation, authenticity over conformity. So, what will your next chapter be? What bold moves will you make? What dreams will you pursue now that you're free from the traps that have held you back? The pen is in your hand and the page is blank, waiting for you to write your story of transformation, fulfillment, and joy. Remember, the power to break the cycle of misery and create a truly fulfilling life has been within you all along. This book has simply helped you uncover it, providing the map and the tools for your journey. Now, it's time to step forward with confidence, ready to craft the life you've always dreamed of. Your future self, happier, more fulfilled, living with purpose and joy, is waiting. It's time to meet them. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Take that step today and watch as the world of possibility unfolds before you. Your best life is waiting. Go out there and claim it. But as you embark on this transformative journey, you might encounter a new challenge, maintaining your newfound clarity and purpose in the face of others' expectations and demands. How can you protect the positive changes you've made and continue to grow? The answer lies in a crucial skill that complements everything you've learned here. To truly master the art of living authentically and joyfully, I urge you to explore the audiobook, How to Set Boundaries, Learn to Say No, and Stop People-Pleasing. It's the key to solidifying your transformation and unlocking even greater levels of personal freedom and fulfillment. Tap the center of the video now to continue your transformation journey.